Hello, hello, Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup. It is Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024, in the United Corporations of America, joined by the one and only. Wow, I look much taller than you. Gotta love it. I'm gonna sink down like this. Joined
I
by,
can raise my chair up, and then we can.
there you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Oh, well, your hair is like 5 inches, so it kind of,
Right. It
yeah.
balances out.
Joined by Ron Placone. What's going on, Ron? Happy New Year. What are you working on?
Happy New Year, Jordan. Good to see you, buddy. I'm working on a lot of different things, actually. My movie's getting out there. We got some screenings scheduled. You can go to ronplacone.com. We got Tucson, D.C., Pittsburgh, L.A., and some of those are shows and screenings. In other words, I will be there. So you can get tickets and information at ronplacone.com. DC, there's a free screening happening in Washington, D.C., so you guys get to see the movie for free. So I'm real excited about that, and I'm real excited about the vertical series that Status Coup is going to be carrying starting at the end of the month. We're already 3 episodes deep, and I can't wait for the world to see it.
And that is a real beard next to Ron, I think.
It's a real beard.
Yes,
That's Drew's
we will
beard.
be premiering. We will be premiering at the end of January, Frank Azzurri, and
Yep.
I will not say more, but we will promote those details later. It is a very, very. I watched it. Very, very cool. Very short film that is quite the commentary on where we are in this hellscape that is the United Corporations of America. We got a big show. A lot going on. I just posted, for those of you who follow us on Substack, make sure you do follow us on Substack, which you can follow us for free on Substack. That's statuscoup.substack.com. Just posted a bit of an investigative piece as a follow-up to our Amazon reporting on Friday about a gas leak that happened, and Amazon did not evacuate the building for hours.
7
And Amazon
hours.
actually didn't even call the fire department. It was workers. Shocking. So we'll follow up because I obtained internal emails from the general manager of Amazon at that location in Albany, New York, who's lying through his teeth after endangering the workers. We also have Jay Ponti coming up. He's been a longtime activist, was involved with Standing Rock, actually way back, Occupy Wall Street, Bernie Movement 2016, Standing Rock, many other things. He's got a new book out. So we'll get into that. But I want to start out. I'm trying my best to keep up because these Epstein documents are starting to drip out like it's like WikiLeaks when it's like every hour, every day, there's new documents coming out. I haven't read this full new document list. Of course, this is not really a list per se, because I think it's accurate to say we still don't know for sure some of the most prominent names. But this batch that's been released since last week is part of legal discovery from Virginia Giuffre's civil case. Virginia Giuffre was one of the victims of Epstein's sexual abuse and his whole horrid sex trafficking ring. So she sued civilly, I believe in 2015, and these documents have been buried and locked up for years, but a judge ruled that they should be released, thankfully. So they're coming out. Some of it, a lot of it, I would say, is stuff we already knew, but a lot of it is additional context, honestly horrible context that adds to what we already knew. And a lot of it begs more questions, specifically about one Bill Clinton, I'd say Donald Trump, and others. I haven't read this whole latest batch. This is out today, but I wanted to read this section because I don't know, Ron. Maybe I'm just kind of a simple man, but former President Clinton has said he was never on Jeffrey Epstein's island. This is contradicted by, I believe, 2 victims, as well as a maintenance person who was featured in a Netflix series, Filthy Rich, saying, yeah, I saw Bill and Jeffrey Epstein standing on Jeffrey's porch. I have no reason to, I don't believe that guy has a reason to lie about it. He was a maintenance worker who basically set up, like, Epstein wanted a secret comms system on his island and secret cable communications, phone lines that couldn't be intercepted. So this guy helped set that up. And he said, yeah, I was, I had a front view of his house and I saw Bill Clinton there. Of course, Bill Clinton said he was only on Jeffrey Epstein's plane 4 times. There's
Right.
flight logs that show he was on upwards of 20 times. So I don't know. I'm old fashioned. If you're caught lying once, I believe you're probably lying about other things. But let's read
Well,
this.
and let's be honest, this wasn't Bill Clinton's first lie either.
No,
It was like maybe the first one of this generation.
correct. So I'm going to read this part here. This is in the most recent document dump. I haven't gone through it all, but this is relevant. So I guess a lawyer is interviewing one of the victims of Epstein's sex trafficking ring and asked, did the FBI, I think it's Virginia Giuffre, actually, who's the lead plaintiff in this, and asked, did the FBI ask you about Bill Clinton or Al Gore? She answers, I do believe they did ask me about Bill Clinton, but I cannot remember the exact conversation we had about him. Lawyer, I understand you were not sexually trafficked to Bill Clinton. Is that correct? Correct. Did Sharon Churcher ask you about Bill Clinton or Al Gore? Sharon Churcher was a journalist with the Sunday Times in the UK, I believe. Giuffre says yes. Question, how many times did you meet Bill Clinton? Giuffre says twice. How many times did you meet Al Gore? Once. Lawyer, you're meeting with Bill Clinton. What was the first one? She answers, I don't know the exact date. I know it was towards the end of my period with Jeffrey. I'm sorry, I can't give you a date. Lawyer asks, the end of your period with Jeffrey is September 2002, correct? That was, yeah, when I left, she answers. That's the first time you met Bill Clinton towards the end of that period, the lawyer asks. And she answers, no, it wasn't September. I'm not saying it was September. I'm saying it was around that period. If I was going to place times around something, it would be towards the end of that. And he asked, where was the first time you met Bill Clinton? And Giuffre answers, on Little St. Jeff's, which is the island. Little St. James. Giuffre says he used to call it Little St. Jeff's. Sorry. Meeting Bill Clinton, generally or specifically about his personality. Where were you on the island when you met him? We had dinner together. Who was at the dinner? Ghislaine Maxwell, Emmy Taylor, Jeffrey Epstein, myself, and 2 girls that I do not know who they are. This is the meeting with Bill Clinton that's been described in press articles. Is that correct? Lawyer objects, and she says, sorry, confusing legal stuff. Yes, I believe it has been circulated. You had a second meeting with Bill Clinton? Yes. When was that? I believe very close, within weeks, if not months. Where was it? Little St. Jeff's. What were the circumstances of your second meeting with Bill Clinton? Very similar. I mean, there was a dinner, lots of laughing, lots of joking. It was just a dinner. And then I didn't have to do anything with Bill Clinton. He was never sexually involved with me. I've never witnessed him sexually involved with anybody else. Jeffrey asked me for a massage after dinner, and I went off to Jeffrey's cabana. Who was at the dinner? Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, myself, Clinton. I believe there were others. There were some other guys. They were down by the beach. I'm not so sure who they were. I assume they were security of some sort. They weren't there at the dinner. There were 2 girls. So each time you had dinner with Bill Clinton, there were 2 girls. Is that correct? From my recollection, yes, only 2. And describe the 2 girls at the first dinner. Young, beautiful, like every girl that's generally around Jeffrey. So it goes on like this, but relevant. In fairness, she's not saying she has any evidence that Bill Clinton was sexually with underage girls, but she is saying twice Bill Clinton was at that island. She's not the only one saying Bill Clinton was at that island. Bill Clinton, former president, who, remember, can you define the meaning of Bill Clinton under perjury? I think it's kind of a big deal that you're now seeing. I mean, it's been reported that accusers said that they saw him there, but now you're seeing the actual testimony, and this is under oath. It's perjury if she's lying. She's saying he was there. I don't know why he would be lying unless he had something to hide, Ron.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, God, this is probably goes without saying a million times over, but I trust Bill Clinton as far as I can throw him. I mean, that guy has just proven himself to be completely dishonest over the years. The older I get, because when that whole thing happened with Monica Lewinsky, you and I are around the same. Smash the like button, by the way. Smash it. But you and I are around the same age, so we were pretty young when that happened. And the reason I mention that is because when it happened, I just saw everybody involved as adults. You know what I mean? Now that I'm older and I can kind of like like I've just had more laps around the track as a human, and you realize he was the most powerful person in the world, and she was a 22-year-old intern, or however old she was, in that range, right? And he did what he did, and it's just so it's just so gross, like to just conduct yourself that way when you're the president, and it's so. Yeah, nothing would surprise me when it comes to Bill Clinton in that arena or just in general. I mean, this is the guy who really ushered in the third wave for his own political gain. I mean, he is, I don't even think history has fully reflected just how terrible he was as far as, just the political arena in the United States. Because we're still
Well,
feeling the effects of a lot of the stuff he did.
I think there's multiple issues here. And I want to be fair. I mean, elephant in the room, I was unfairly and unjustly accused of horrible stuff years ago. So I know what it's like when you're, smeared. But when there's smoke, there's fire. And I think there's two issues here. Number one, he's now been shown to have repeatedly lied about several things pertaining to Epstein, yet as far as I know, there's never been a criminal investigation into Bill Clinton. And as far as I know, the media has never investigated Bill Clinton. A lot of those media, I mean, some of them direct ties. I think the Daily Beast, Chelsea Clinton was on their parent company's board
Right.
for many years. But CNN, I mean, they used to call it the Clinton News Network. There's a lot of ties between parent companies of a lot of networks. Comcast owns NBC, AT&T owns CNN.
And wait, why is that? Because of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, passed by who? Bill Clinton. That's why I loved in 2016 where everyone was saying, "Oh, the media is so unfair to Hillary Clinton." I'm like, well, I mean, her husband made it possible. Her husband made said media possible. So that's interesting.
Right. But there's two things here. Number one, he's lied about several things, yet it doesn't seem the media ever wants to question him on it. We do know, Graham Elwood has talked about this, and this video came out. Amy Robach, who was an ABC News anchor, I guess she got fired because her and a co-anchor were having an affair. I don't know the whole thing, but she was with ABC for many years. I think she was on 2020 and then Good Morning America. She was on Hot Mic after the Epstein stuff came out, saying I had the story and ABC killed it. And that happens a lot at these big networks. But he's never been investigated, and it doesn't seem, even though these documents coming out now are contradicting what he has told the public. I don't know. Of course, there's other things to cover, Gaza, and the horror and slaughter and genocide going on there. But we could walk and chew gum. I think it's a big deal whether you are a neoliberal, a conservative, MSNBC resistance cheerleader, or a January 6th enthusiast. Any former president, if there's even a question that they've lied about anything pertaining to a illegal sex trafficking ring, there should be a media investigation, a criminal investigation. There's nothing. And then let's say he's innocent of all that. I don't know. You're talking 2001, 2002, 2003. This man could pick up the phone and call the Department of Justice, the FBI, anybody. He was the former president. If you see something going on that seems untoward, I mean, she's there saying, yeah, after dinner, I went to go give Epstein massages. He didn't see anything that seemed strange. He didn't hear anything that seemed strange. He didn't see any young girls that seemed too young. You would think he has forget the moral responsibility, but as a former president, some type of ethical and potentially legal responsibility to report it if he saw anything that seemed questionable.
Absolutely. And I think the chances of him ever doing something like that are slim to nil. I mean, I just think the guy's a total scumbag. And, I mean, I feel that way about Trump too. Obviously, I feel that way about, and I know this isn't a direct connection, but like when all that stuff was going on with Matt Gaetz, I trust that guy as far as I can throw him. I mean, I think that the significant relevance to all of this is that this is a huge problem. And it's a shame. I think that when Jeffrey Epstein, quote unquote, killed himself, that's when the chances of ever really finding anything out significant, I think, went out the window. And I just think that it's really sad that, this is a serious issue that is happening among the elites. Unfortunately, in our sphere, we just have, stuff like QAnon that takes it to absolutely ridiculous, insane places. And I think that sort of thing kind of stifles a real constructive conversation. And I think it's a shame.
And, I don't know Jeffrey Epstein's brother, but as we mentioned last week, Epstein's brother, not 10 years ago, we're talking last week, came out saying that Jeffrey Epstein, before he air quotes killed himself, told his brother that if he revealed what he had about the Clintons, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump in 2016, the election would have to be canceled.
Yeah, I mean, dude,
I don't see any reason his brother would lie. I mean, maybe he's trying to get a book deal. Who knows? But he's saying that his late brother told him, oh, I got crippling, catastrophic dirt on both of them. And
I'm sure he did. I mean, dude, people, sometimes it's like you have to take a step back and remind yourself, Jeffrey Epstein, with as powerful and connected as he was like in the middle as far as like how powerful, those people are. I mean, he was basically someone they were able to make the fall guy. So, I mean, as far as just like oligarchs and people that participate in those horrific things, I don't even think we've seen the full extent of the iceberg, let alone what is underneath the iceberg in the water. And I don't know if we ever will.
And I want to point out one last thing about this before we move on. And again, it seems like they're going to be releasing more of these documents now every day, possibly multiple times a day. I'm trying to go through them as much as possible on top of other stories. But I think it's important to point out the timeline here. When they're saying Bill Clinton was visiting his island, which Clinton denies, Jeffrey Epstein, this was right after he left the presidency and they were creating the Clinton Foundation, which was their big, post-presidential thing, where they had the yearly conference where everybody came and Bono and all the celebrities and politicians. And, they had their thought leaders and sat on stage and, cheered to neoliberalism. But Jeffrey Epstein was given a shit ton of money to the Clinton Foundation. And more importantly than Jeffrey Epstein's direct donations, because Epstein never really donated the most to anybody. He gave money to Harvard. He gave money all over the place. But why he was so important to these individuals and entities was he was bringing in other rich people and his network to donate. So if Bill Clinton let's say Bill Clinton didn't do anything himself, but he knew about it and saw something, it's very likely he kind of looked the other way because Epstein was important to the foundation. Epstein was important in terms of raising money for the foundation. Epstein was donating to his wife at the time. She was a senator. Epstein was donating when she ran for president in 2008. So if that's part of Clinton's silence, I mean, it's very possible he was doing illegal things with underage women too. But if his silence is part of just, hey, that's the price of doing business. We need this guy's money and clout for other donors. That is morally repugnant, if you ask me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everything you just described is 100% not only plausible, but I think also very likely. I mean, we don't know, anything for 100% certainty yet, just to be above board journalistically. But I mean, I would be more surprised if there was no wrongdoing on his part than if there was every wrongdoing on his part. Like, I'll be shocked if, like, somehow it comes to the surface that, like, yeah, no, he actually didn't do anything. I'd be shocked, even if it was something as, like, he just turned the other way when he knew something was going down. I'd be shocked if that was the case.
It's possible Bill Clinton was with legal 18-year-olds or legal 17-year-olds.
Sure.
That's possible. It's also still kind of gross for, at that point, a 50-something on former president. So it's possible it wasn't illegal, but I don't know. I have a very hard time believing Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz. Let's remember, lower on the totem pole, not a big name. Bill Richardson is in those documents. I mean, he's dead. He was the former governor of New Mexico. He ran for president in 2008, was a big friend of the Clintons, big power player in the Democratic Party. He's in there, and he's being accused of having sex with Epstein victims. Again, he's dead. He can't defend himself, but you would think he's good friends with the Clintons. It was a big scandal when he, I believe, endorsed Obama, if I have that correct. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But all I know is something ain't adding up when you say you're only on the plane 4 times. Flight logs show 26. You say you were never on the island. You got 3 or 4 people now saying, I sat across from him from the table. I saw him on the porch. Then they say there's no logs of him going to the island. Yeah, because the Secret Service would keep logs of Bill Clinton going to Jeffrey's Island. So we'll keep this up. But I think obviously the worst part of this is the victims and the trauma they've gone through. But I think the second part is who knew what and when, in talking about the media. And hopefully that will be revealed soon.
I hope we find some things out, man. I'm not super hopeful, but I sincerely hope we get some answers.
Smash that like button, share this live stream. Now moving on to other victims in the United Corporations of America, workers. We broke last week that there was a gas leak at an Amazon in Albany. This Amazon was one of the few who got a union election in 2022. They lost the union election, I believe, because Amazon brought in an army of union busting consultants. And, in a lot of cases with workers living paycheck to paycheck, that's very intimidating when you have these consultants all over the warehouse telling you, hey, if this warehouse gets unionized, we might have to cut staff, cut benefits. We might have to shut down the plant. So the union election lost by 200 votes. But this Amazon near Albany, which I've been to, ranks top 10 in safety violations. And on Friday, workers started reaching out to me in the morning here on the East Coast saying there was a really bad odor and it smelled like gas. But the general manager would not release them, would not evacuate the building. So finally, a worker, 2-3 hours into this, workers were having headaches, dizzy, coughing. I mean, if you have a gas leak and there's probably possible carbon monoxide poisoning, I mean, you could suffocate, depending on how bad it is. You would think that, they have carbon monoxide detectors, but sometimes they malfunction, whatever. So there's gas, people are sick. And finally, a worker, not Amazon, called the fire department. The fire department shows up, immediately pulls the fire alarm and starts demanding, who's in charge here? Well, they had a gas leak and carbon monoxide levels hit 40 parts per million, which is far above the allowed level indoors. I did an interview while this was happening because after they evacuated, not Amazon, the fire department evacuated the workers. Amazon left them out in the freezing cold in Albany, New York for 2 hours in 26 degrees instead of just sending them home. So the general manager responsible for that was stupid enough to email every worker and put out their email addresses last night. And I got the email. So I'm not going to read the whole story. Colin, if you could just put the Substack link in the description of this live stream or in the super chat. I'll read some of it. Status Coup has obtained an internal Amazon email written by an Amazon general manager to workers at ALB1 near Albany that misleads employees about what transpired during a potentially dangerous gas leak and evacuation. On January 5th, around 8 a.m. Eastern, Amazon pickers who collect and package items in the warehouse reported to managers strong odor that smelled like gas. According to Heather Goodall, a worker who led the 2002 union drive at ALB1. By the 10 a.m. hour, several workers were complaining of headaches, nausea, and coughing. At 10:30 a.m., safety department workers were calling to evacuate, which, according to Goodall, angered the general manager, who's like basically the CEO of the warehouse. He went storming out of his office, went into the safety department, and said, "Who told you could evacuate? That's not your call. You don't have the authority. We're staying at full capacity." Then he went over the radio and said, "No, we're not evacuating. Everybody remain at full capacity." This kind of tug of war between the safety department saying to evacuate and this ridiculous corporate ghoul, Schlatt, who's the general manager, continued for 40 minutes. At 11:10, Tia, another worker, was laying down an Amcare. The Amcare is like, the nurse, the first aid area, feeling dizzy. Gee, why would you feel dizzy if there's strong odor of gas? She said, I did smell gas, she told Status Coup. While laying in Amcare, Leanza heard safety workers call to evacuate the building. At about 11:10, one of the Amcare staff came to me and told me specifically, because I was laying down, we're about to evacuate. He was standing there with his radio, and he said that to me. And then over the radio, Nick, the general manager, again, second time in 45 minutes, says, no, we're not. Operations at full capacity. I make the call. This is my call to make. Soon after, an Amazon worker, not Schlatt, called the local fire department. They arrived shortly before noon Eastern. The minute the fire company walked in and smelled the gas fumes, they pulled the alarm. Ultimately, the evacuation ordered by the fire department occurred an hour and a half after Schlatt's first rejected safety workers' call to evacuate the building. I want to read just part of this email that Schlatt sent out last night, because people, Amazon workers have this digital message board that they could air their grievances. I doubt management really cares. But all day, yesterday, workers were calling for him to resign. And Amazon didn't respond to me on Friday, and they didn't respond to me yesterday. Shocking. By Monday evening, the general manager sent an email to workers at 7:55 at night, based on the accounts of several workers we spoke with. You can't really say anything other than he misled and lied. He wrote, we're grateful to our teams who helped evacuate the building in a timely manner and get every single person accounted for quickly, he wrote. Of course, the building was not evacuated in a timely manner because Schlatt himself refused requests from the safety department to evacuate the building for an hour and a half. In another instance of him misleading employees, he wrote that after authorities arrived, we fully evacuated the facility. Hey, Ron, he kind of left out the fact that he didn't call the authorities. The workers did.
Yeah.
And this comes on top of JFK 8 in Staten Island, which won the historic first Amazon union, which Amazon is still refusing to come to the bargaining table and bargain for a contract. I mean, they didn't close down during blizzards. Workers were threatened. If you don't come in a blizzard, many of them drive to work, you're going to lose your job. We know about, I think it was last year in Kentucky, 6 people died in a warehouse during a tornado because they wouldn't send workers home. I'm glad nobody got hurt, but if not for workers calling the fire department, it doesn't seem like they were going to evacuate, and a gas leak could lead to an explosion.
Right.
I don't really have any other words other than what I've reported.
I mean, there's so many levels here because, first of all, I do think this manager should lose his job. Absolutely. I do think he should lose his job. And I think what he did was nothing short of psychotic. However, let's also recognize that this goes far beyond one warehouse and one manager. This is the culture at Amazon. I mean, you just described all the other things. And I think this also goes beyond the culture of Amazon. This is the work culture of the United States and a result of just straight up capitalism. And I think that,
but Ron, on Friday during the jobs report that was released, CNN said the economy's kicking butt.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. I love those. I love those numbers. That is like such a skewed metric that basically means nothing. It's whenever they talk about like unemployment, like the way they measure unemployment, or jobs numbers and stuff like that, they don't factor in people who stopped looking for work. They don't factor in underemployed people, which are most people in the U.S. They don't factor in any of that stuff. They don't factor in how cost of living is just like way out of pace with the wages people are getting paid. It is such a BS metric, and it's just a talking point for whoever's doing PR for the White House, whoever's in the presidency. It's so humorous to me, but they still like trot it out on like all these financial shows as if it's not just hocus pocus stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think this is really, I mean, you see that meme where it's like, what stage of capitalism is this? you can apply that meme to basically everything you see in the news on a daily basis. This is just one of many anecdotes. And the answer to that question is this is capitalism. This is what capitalism is. This is what it does. This is what it leads to every single time it's tried. And man, we can do better than this. I'm not saying humanity's perfect, but holy cow, we can do better than this.
And frankly, I got to be honest with you. I understand we basically have a governmental system that has been purchased. That's why I call it the United Corporations of America.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the point of even having OSHA at this point? What is the point? I'm sure it's understaffed. I'm sure there's good people there that have their hands tied behind their back. But how, I mean, if this was like a small business, without political clout, they'd be shut down after the first 2 violations.
Mm-hmm.
If this was like in a local community, but I mean, OSHA knows about this. The NLRB, which is better than it has been in the past, but doesn't really have the enforcement mechanism. All they could do is hit Amazon with fines, with Jeff Bezos wipes up his ass. That's one of the big failures of Biden, among others. He did not fight for the PRO Act. He did not try to put it into any of the reconciliation packages that didn't require Republican votes. Sure, Manchin would have bitched and Sinema would have bitched, but I don't know. You're the president. You could use the bully pulpit, inspire people.
Once, maybe one time, use it for something good.
But the bottom line is when you have this economic hellscape we're living in, where 64%, and I think it's more than that, are living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't have a lot of opportunities and they don't have a lot of alternatives than Amazon, for example, specifically young people. Amazon has a lot of workers that have high school degrees and that's it, which is fine. No shame in that, but that's perfect. That's the perfect conditions for exploiting them and keeping them in there during a potential explosion and gas leak. And by the way, I spoke with workers there. There's workers who are pregnant women working at Amazon. Imagine being pregnant and there's this strong odor of gas. There are, because we don't treat our seniors right and we barely have a safety net, there's workers that are in their 60s. I've met workers in their 70s still working at Amazon during a gas leak. And this guy, and in the Substack story, again, join our Substack. The story's up. Colin, if you could put the story in the description, the link. I put the whole email from him at the bottom of the story. I mean, it is literally gaslighting. He's just saying safety is our number one priority, and blah,
which
blah,
is
blah, blah.
ironic.
Yeah,
which is tragically ironic.
And you got to remember, part of our society, and it's sick, and I'm guilty of it too. I have watched, Thursday football on Amazon, but because they have so much money in PR and marketing to put those wonderful commercials that show Amazon, putting a nice guy through college, and that guy becomes a nurse, and then at the end of commercial, he's standing on the sand, looking out into the ocean. You feel good about Amazon. And Amazon has commercials that, show a wonderful workplace. And Amazon sometimes has celebrities do things with it. And Amazon has Amazon Prime. And, Americans care about their football. But this is really, and I'm not exaggerating, this is the definition of the economic Hunger Games, what's going on at Amazon. It's not just Amazon. We know similar things happen at other places. But this is the second largest company in America. It's one of the biggest, most valuable companies in the world. It has clearly purchased our government. It has contracts with the Pentagon, NSA. And I don't know. I mean, I do believe where the momentum is in labor, is in trying to unionize, is in trying to strike. But we're going to need labor and multiple industries to come together to fight this, because the mainstream media, unfortunately, isn't really doing anything about it. And obviously the political class, people are going to die at some point, and people have died at Amazon warehouses. But this is just absolutely unacceptable, particularly from $1 trillion company that could send people home. It's just unreal.
Well, and has anyone else reported on this? I mean, I've only seen anything about this here at Status Coup. Like,
what do you think, Ron?
I mean, I'd like to think maybe one other place, but yeah, this is it.
Nope. I don't even think locally.
Amazing.
And why do you think? I mean, I'm happy for it. It gives us great journalism to do. Why do you
Sure.
think activists and workers come to us first? I'm
Yeah.
sure. I mean, I wouldn't be offended if they went to the New York Times first, but they know the New York Times isn't going to do it.
Yeah.
They know, bigger outlets that could reach people internationally and a lot more people than we can. They're not going to do it. And if they do it, they'll twist themselves into a pretzel to water it down. I mean, the New York Times did a long piece on Amazon's union busting, and frankly, it was overwhelmingly way too generous to Amazon. And that's partly, for legal concerns and this and that. But they come to us first. And part of that is, honestly, part of why activists and workers come to us first in many cases, other than knowing we care and will report it, is to inform the other workers. I mean, in this case, you didn't have to inform the workers. People could smell it. But in a lot of cases, not all workers know what's going on. So, they see it through Status Coup or, More Perfect Union does some good labor coverage,
Yes.
Real News. But it's a small island, no pun intended, to Epstein. So it's really problematic. And I did an interview while they were standing outside in the cold. It wasn't just that they wouldn't evacuate these workers. It wasn't just that the workers called the fire department, not Amazon. Instead of sending them home, they sent them outside and had them wait for 2 hours. It was between 26 and 30 degrees in upstate New York and Albany. Anybody here live in upstate New York or the
Gets cold.
kind of industrial Midwest? And they were handing out little like warmth packages that were like glorified ponchos. And
That's
then
incredible.
a worker, we have it on camera, a worker said to HR, because, Amazon has their unpaid time off policy. So it's certain hours you get not paid, but you could take off. But if you go in the negative as an Amazon worker and unpaid time off, you face termination. So an Amazon worker asked HR, if any of us leave because we're freezing, will we get docked from unpaid time off, or UPT, they call it. And the HR person said, yes, nobody's been dismissed. And then the Amazon worker followed up, if any of us are currently, close to the negative and we leave and we go in the negative, well, can we be terminated? And they said, yes. I mean, this is just dystopian insanity.
Totally. I mean, imagine being in a situation where you people were risking like frostbite and stuff like that. I mean, people were risking. I mean, when you're in freezing cold weather, imagine risking like getting something serious because you're freezing, or you'll lose your job. I mean, that is just. I mean, it's criminal what happened. And this is not an isolated incident. This is a reflection of what the United States is. And the only way we're going to fight back is through massive strikes. I mean, the UAW was a start. And we've seen some other solid starts, but I mean, we just need so much more. Because, like we haven't even touched upon just work culture yet. And work culture is what allows stuff like this. You think that would have happened at a warehouse in France?
No.
They would have burned it down. They would have burned it down. Like they would have been like, oh, you're not going to dismiss us? All right, we're going to burn it down to keep warm. You might want to get out. That's what they would have done in France. I mean...
Absolutely. Real quick, because I got to go to our next guest soon. I want to talk to Ron, who's our digital everything person. Ron, apparently free speech warrior Elon Musk is at it again. Went on a suspension spree this morning. Suspended Ken Klippenstein. He's an investigative journalist with The Intercept. Suspended a Texas Observer investigative journalist, Stephen Monticelli, I believe. Suspended the TrueAnon, the popular podcast account.
Yep.
And then like hours later, after mass pushback, including a video from us, not that, we had anything to do with it, but a lot of pushback and a lot of people calling him a fraud and all that, he unsuspended them. The journalists, and most of them kind of lefty journalists, weren't really given an explanation why they were suspended. I did see that Ken Klippenstein wrote in December about Elon Musk having some type of dialogue with Israel about AI for their weapons, because Israel has been using AI to drop their 2,000-pound bombs and kill most over 20,000 Palestinians. I'm not surprised, and I hate to say I told you so, but I did tell you so when, certain lefties were cheering about Elon Musk taking over Twitter. I said, what makes you think a union busting megalomaniac who got God knows how much money from the federal government is actually gives a shit about free speech? Any speech that threatens him or his class, he will squash. And here we are.
Yeah, there's a lot of quote unquote free speech absolutists that don't actually understand what free speech is, don't actually understand how it works. And yeah, anyone who didn't see that Elon Musk, and by the way, Twitter wasn't perfect before, it had plenty of problems, but he has taken it and made it so much worse from every angle. I mean, it has just become, he's ruined it. He's completely pretty much ruined it. And now you see what just a hypocrite he is. And it's amazing because his stands, no matter what he does, they have some type of ridiculous excuse for him. And they are living in an alternate reality. Like they are just living on Neptune when it comes to this guy, where it's like, how do you not see him for what he is? And by the way, if anyone wants an extensive, like deep dive onto who Elon Musk really is, because he is no friend of labor, he is no friend of the left. He is a lunatic, and he is an incredibly dangerous person. Listen to the Dollop episode about that guy, the American History Podcast, The Dollop. Listen to the episode on Elon Musk. Find out more about Elon Musk's family, especially what his grandpa was into, which he has not ever even distanced himself from. Elon Musk is not a good guy.
I agree. And I will say, listen, I wasn't a fan of like the pre-Musk Twitter because it was run by a lot of limousine liberals who basically just didn't want to piss off big time politicians and media. But at least Twitter fucking worked then. If it's going to be a censorship state, at least make it work. I mean, a lot of the times I'm on Twitter, pages aren't loading, or it takes 10 to 15 seconds now to load. They've gotten rid of like 60 to 70% of their software and security team. There is no security on Twitter anymore. It's just beyond Elon Musk. This is what happens when we have a country by and for the billionaires, and they own our newspapers, our social media platforms. This is what happens. And by the way, we don't have time for this, but it's not just direct censorship. I warned about what shadow censorship, which is to me even more prevalent. And that's the suppression, which happens on this platform, YouTube, which happens on Twitter, Facebook. I used to get, I don't know, a couple hundred viewers when we went live on Facebook. Suddenly they changed their algorithm. I was going live to like 5 people.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, and on Twitter, he's pretty much made it that on Twitter, like if you want to be seen, you basically have to pay. Like he's basically made, I mean, he has suppressed outside links to the gills. Like if you're going to post a link, and for me, I mean, that's been really horrible because like I want to post a link to a podcast. I want to post a link to, shows and to where to get tickets for shows. Now it's like that gets suppressed to high heaven. So you just got to hope that some people see it basically when you post it, and that's it. And so, I mean, he's really just in many ways killed the platform, and it's really sad. I mean, Twitter, it used to, at least, even though it had a ton of problems, it at least used to be valuable for news and information because you knew who somebody was, so you could quote them. He just gutted all of that and made it even worse, way worse.
Ron, pimp your shit, because I got to move on to the next guest.
Well, thanks for having me, Jordan. Always great to join you. RonPlacone.com is my website. I have screenings of my movie Left at Wall. There's a screening in Tucson, Omaha, Nebraska, Washington, D.C. There's a show and a screening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That means I'll be there. And a show and a screening in Los Angeles, California. You can get all those tickets and information at RonPlacone.com. I also have a new podcast series called 1000 with Ron Placone. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for that, Colin. Yeah, I got a new podcast series. Please check it out. You can see clips on my YouTube channel, and you can also get the audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
And you can see my new podcast, $9.99.
Right underneath. Love it.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Jordan.
All right, joining me now, old friend Jay Ponti. Jay Ponti, for those of you that don't know, I mean, I consider myself kind of a vet of the lefty movement, the progressive movement, but you got me beat. You've been out there, I mean, Occupy Wall Street, then the dark days of the left, but when Occupy Wall Street ended through the, period before Bernie launched his campaign in 2015. Then you were, in a lot of kind of movements within the Bernie movement. You were at Standing Rock. You were involved with a lot of, protests, whether it be Standing Rock, Black Lives Matter. At obviously the second Bernie campaign, you've been involved after Standing Rock with trying to disinvest through the banks, disinvestment from the banks that are investing in fossil fuels. And you basically have over a decade kind of the highs and lows of, I guess the revolution. So you wrote a book about it called Be the Revolution, How Occupy Wall Street and the Bernie Sanders movement reshaped American politics. So, I mean, we got people from different parts of the spectrum, left, right, politically agnostic that watch. So kind of tell me what inspired this. I know because I've seen you on the ground. What made you want to write about this, and how would you describe, kind of what the last decade has been, not just for you, but kind of this moment that we're in?
Jordan, what's up, man? Great to see you. And yeah, definitely would hate to look at it as a competition. To be honest, I didn't have any plan to do any of those things. I found myself at Occupy Wall Street in the Los Angeles encampment. That was a huge moment for me. I got swept up in it. My first day there was just such an awakening. It was like a punk rock circus. 1,000 people camped out, and it was just such an incredible moment. It was happening all over the world. And then when I was there, I remember getting hit with a baton in the ribs by a riot cop. And I was wearing like a suit coat. So I was like, this is crazy. That was the first moment I went, oh shit, the class war is real. This is real. This is what happens when you try to challenge state power. And dude, you were there, man. Like, we were at Standing Rock crashing in your hotel room. And I gotta say, when it's -19 and you don't have a winterized tent, it's really nice to have a hotel room for a couple nights, and yeah, I remember you and I like trying to escape the blizzard, like this mad, it was like a movie. I don't want to reduce it to like a movie, but yeah. So to try to answer your question, I didn't really want to write this book, but I just felt compelled because for me, the climate apocalypse, which is here, the rise of global neo-fascism is here, and it has never been more important for people to actually claim leadership and step up. And especially this new generation of activists. We didn't really have any curriculum. We had very little mentorship. I mean, Gen X globally didn't have much mentorship. We had kind of to figure it out as we went along. There wasn't a lot of institutional memory. And in my opinion, like, there just is no time for this generation of activists coming up to spend 10 years to learn how the corporate state, I call it the corporate state. Basically, it's how how government officials, state agencies, the police state, the media, they intersect and collude in various ways to maintain power. And it's very difficult to take on, and we get beat a lot. So for me, I believed it was really important to record this history, as the takeaways, what worked, what hasn't worked, especially for the people. It's really for anyone who's feeling that they want to stand up and make a difference, but especially for the young people coming up right now. It's really important that we have that institutional memory and a new theory of change, because a lot of the organizing theory and ideas are still kind of carried over from the 60s and 70s, where the neo-fascist right are taking advantage of every technological advancement, as you were just talking about, Elon Musk gaslighting and banning leftists from, from these platforms. So those are some of the reasons I wrote the book.
And what's interesting to me is I think a lot of people who we met at Occupy, I was there too, Standing Rock, a lot of these other, I mean, you've been involved with BLM, climate, you name it, all these different movements. A lot of them were first swept in for the first time through the Bernie movement. And I think a lot of people, not because they're stupid, but kind of maybe we're fooled into thinking that, like, if we just elect one president, or if we just elect a couple Congress people that are progressive, we could really change the world. But you've been really, really focused on organizing, even before this like recent labor resurgence, before Striketober of a few years ago, before the John Deere strikes, before Starbucks started organizing. I mean, you've been out there like teaching about organizing, this and that. And the truth is, it's not a sexy word. A lot of people think organizing is doing hashtags, but a big part of your book involves not just being at these events and movements, but organizing within them. Can you kind of describe that? Because I've been on the receiving end of you telling me stuff you were working on, and can you kind of explain, your organizing and why people might learn something, from reading the book, what some of your organizing was like whether it be Standing Rock, Occupy, etc.
Yeah. So just to clarify, I don't want to give the idea that I've been, sort of really deeply involved in BLM. I wish I had been more involved. It wasn't one of the movement that I've been as deeply involved in as I was with Occupy or the Bernie movement. Always in solidarity, I'm always in solidarity with BLM activists. I'm always pushing for more involvement, but just want to make sure that's clear. But for me, the importance of getting involved in real spaces is it can't be overstated, because essentially capitalism, one of the features of capitalism is called atomization. We have been conditioned to feel separate, different, alone. This is one of the reasons why Amazon is the most profitable company in the world, or one of them. We've been conditioned to believe we are consumers, and that is filtered through every aspect of our lives, including our politics. So we approach our politics and our relationship to politics that way. So like you said, if only, everyone's looking for a hero, because we've been sold this lie, especially by the neoliberal establishment. Sometime in the 90s, the third way Democrats promoted the idea that of the technocracy, that, we're the really smart, highly educated people, and we're going to do, we got this. So that then essentially we all just become consumers, as long as then we can just perform our role with being producers and buying things, and we don't have to get involved. And we've just seen since the 90s, it's been a colossal failure. Neoliberalism has failed us. The leadership has failed us. It's just been a continuation of one stupid fucking war after the other. Complete and total dereliction of leadership as we face literal extinction. And I wish I had better news, but nobody's got a plan. I've been to the Global Clean Energy Action Forum in Pittsburgh, and really it's just a big money grab for that IRA money, and nobody's got a plan. No one's inventing anything. And so for me, I want to try to bring it back to realize that one of the things that we got in Occupy and the Bernie movement, which I make a really clear distinction that they are a continuation of one and the same. For us, Occupy never ended. For a lot of us, it never ended. And the Bernie campaign, especially, would have never happened without specifically Occupy activists pushing him to run. Like, he didn't want to run. It wasn't his plan. So you had two camps, Occupy and PDA, who were simultaneously pushing Bernie to run, activating the Occupy national network before Bernie even declared. And that's really important, because they were not looking at Bernie as someone to save them. They were looking at him as a tactic. And they knew that it was known that the Clinton nomination was inevitable. They ran Washington. It was inevitable. It was a fait accompli. and they had different ideas, and we arguably would be living in a very different world had those people not taken it upon themselves to lead and stand up and create that resistance, which then has, of course, gone through and created the seeds for the modern labor movement. So from Occupy, two Bernie campaigns, Standing Rock was there. You have all of these other branches that came off of that, but ultimately it's to smash the illusion that someone is coming to save us. And the cover of the book actually is sort of an homage to the Ramones logo, because these were punk rock movements. It's punk rock because it's DIY. It's punk rock because no one is waiting for anyone's permission, right? Punk rockers in the 70s and 80s knew that no label was coming to save them. If they wanted to have shows, if they wanted to have an album, if they wanted, media, they'd have to all make it themselves. And that's what Occupy and the Bernie movements did. They weren't waiting for big organizations to give them permission. People showed up as they were, as themselves, did amazing work. And that was the real power, I think, that completely redefined politics in this country.
Right. One thing in my personal experience that maybe you've had something like this, I think for me, one of the kind of most memorable moments of my, I guess, short career, I was on what they call Facebook Hill at Standing Rock, which was kind of the only area you could get Wi-Fi in the camp. And I was there on the day that Obama denied the final permit for the easement, which meant no pipeline. This was December 2016. Trump was already elected. And in the back of my mind, I kind of thought this might be reversed, but at least for the moment, I mean, I literally had hundreds of people around me as I was live, dancing and singing and hugging. Some were crying, and this was when everyone was working much longer than I had been there. And I kind of felt like, wow, there's a lot of moments in journalism you feel like you're doing this for no reason, but like, wow, victory, Yeah. And then kind of like a punch in the gut, a few weeks later, Trump came in and on day 1 or 2, reversed the whole thing. Mm-hmm. That is very systematic of any revolution. Like, you've had high moments, I'm sure, at Occupy and in the Bernie movement where you thought like, wow, we're like, if it's football, we're like on the 5-yard line here. We might actually win. And then there's that gut punch moment. Yeah. And I think that's why there's been a break in the left over the last couple of years, ever since kind of Bernie's last campaign, because a lot of people after a second or third or fourth gut punch have just grown very cynical. And in some cases, I don't want to say nihilistic, but just like, screw it, they're all corrupt, and kind of check out. How do you avoid that? How do you continue on with the organizing and the activism when, frankly, the government's still corrupt, the planet's still burning, and our efforts clearly have made strides but are not really working, full on at this point?
Right. It's an easy conclusion to make that, there's no point. It's easy to kind of fall in that nihilism. But this is where history is so important. And there really hasn't been any history recorded of this. It really, there are a couple of books that are coming out. Raina Lipshitz's The Rise of a New Radicals. I'm going to misquote it badly. But anyways, there are a few books that are coming out that are sort of taking on this. But the movement memory is really important because you look at two different worlds that we could live in, right? One where, this world it's a nightmare. It's a hell. For Gaza, it's literally hell. We're literally living in hell. This administration is funding it. We're providing the weapons for it. It's hell. No doubt. No doubt that we came closer to a real populist president than ever in history. And it's important to balance that with the understanding that we would be living in a much scarier world. As hard as it is to realize, go back. So this movement actually goes back to 2004. 2004 was Dennis Kucinich's run, where he was like this outlier peace candidate. And at that time, we were living in a post 9/11 world, and that absolutely crushed the left. Like 9/11 had a seismic impact on the left, where everyone, like the entire, I call it the corporate state, really found this as a way to solidify power and squash anything that resembled leftism. And then you just had this plucky group of people that came out of that. Dennis Kucinich, it really was not taken that seriously, but you had some really incredible people part of that. And out of that 2004 campaign, it was like a mini Bernie 2016. And you had Tim Carpenter, you had Charles Lenchner. And then out of that was birthed Progressive Democrats of America, you know, where you had Jody Evans, Medea Benjamin, Marianne Williamson, all of these people who are now still with us, they actually stole Dennis Kucinich's list and used that to launch PDA, which I actually love because it appeals to my pirate anarchist, you know, sensibilities. And then they just became this like kind of annoying, you know, like the third way Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, they hated them. You know, they're like, just let us run shit and leave us alone. They didn't do that. And so you keep looking at, you know, the battle for Seattle in 1999 against the WTO, and you look at Occupy Wall Street, and if you look at it from that perspective, each one of these convulsions continues to activate and awaken more people. Okay.
Right.
If you just came in at 2016, it's easy to come to that conclusion that there's no point. It's too hard. We're just going to get beat. But if you understand that Bernie didn't want to run, he was pushed to run. If you understand that Occupy never ended, you just didn't hear about us because it wasn't covered in the mainstream media, but we're everywhere. And because of technology, a lot of us know each other now. We've continued to meet each other. You and I met at think about all the people and the relationships you have just from Bernie and Standing Rock. You and I were going around the convention. You know, that's where there's a chapter on Bernie's Avengers. And as we continue to meet each other and see our work, we keep working together, and it keeps growing. People if you're not involved, if you're not in the trenches, if you're just following on social media, you just don't understand. If you're following one YouTuber or another YouTuber, you're in a little echo chamber. That's why you got to get out from behind the keyboard, man. You got to see what's really going on, because there are people resisting everywhere. And even if you just look at the Biden administration, he was never going to show up on a fucking picket line. Are you kidding me? So you got to look at the ground that has been made, and it is seismic. And yeah, I've never felt more sort of desolate. I've never felt more scared on a daily basis, because I see what the climate science, I'm in these threads with climate scientists just freaking out every day. And with each activation, more people get awakened, more people, you know, take the sort of veneer of the facade of the American dream gets lifted from their eyes to see what's really going on. And we keep
Mm-hmm.
getting better. And you know what? People are winning. You're just not hearing about it. So that's the thing, like, to get out of that consumerist mindset, get out of the isolation, go meet some people, get in the game. And I promise you, there is nothing more empowering. There is no better medicine than actually getting with people in real life, in real space, and just saying, hey guys, there's a chapter in the book on Divest LA, which you were referring to. And that sort of came out of the bank exit movement that you know, you were there. Well, we launched that for Standing Rock. Also, that divestment strategy was launched because some of us knew whether it was going to be Hillary or it was going to be Trump, we knew the pipeline was still going to get pushed through. Divestment was a way to a strategy that could go on infinitely, right? It could go on infinitely. And so we launched that. There's a story in there how we actually organized and launched that with Susan Sarandon and a bunch of other people, and how that's continued to grow. It evolved away in ways we could have never seen into civic divestment, which was people going to their city councils and pushing them to divest billions. So Divest LA came out of that. And this was a handful of millennials that got together in a coffee shop and said, boy, Standing Rock really pissed us off. Bernie really pissed us off. We need to do something about it. And a handful of millennials with no money and no resources, 9 months later, beat Wells Fargo straight up, pushed city council to divest $8 billion, change the entire request for proposal process, unbundle 800 accounts, change the system. And that should have never happened. And eventually they didn't stop there. They went on to say, look, divestment, even if we win initially, they're just going to keep fighting us. So public banking is the next step of how we actually change the system. And they passed public banking on a state and municipal level in LA and the state of California. Should never happen. It's insane that should happen. And yet a handful of people thinking strategically, being resourceful, there's nothing special about us. That's the point. There's nothing special about any of us. It's just that we care enough to stay in the game and to start and try to think it through, beyond just getting out and posting on social media or just, shouting into a bullhorn. As much fun as that is.
I could talk for an hour, but I got to go take care of my baby. I will sell your book right now. Listen, if you are a lefty, but even if you're not a lefty, believe it or not, I've seen it on the road. There's a lot of overlap, especially on economic matters and exploitation between lefties, righties, and everybody in the middle. We're all feeling it in terms of worker exploitation, corrupt capitalists, censorship, surveillance. You don't have to be a lefty to care about those things. But I would really suggest, if you got a couple bucks, buy Be the Revolution, because I think you said it, there isn't really a lot of books that kind of take you through from a leftist perspective or just kind of a populist progressive perspective. This last 10 to 15 years, from Occupy to that dark period between Occupy and Bernie, to the Bernie movement, to Standing Rock, to all of it. And there's a lot. I mean, if I ever write something about that, it feels like 50 years instead of 10 years in terms of the high.
Gray. You can see the gray on the beard. You and I both have more gray in our beard. But Jordan,
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And congratulations to your beautiful family. And, I also tried to make this book fun to read. I think that was one of the hardest things about it was I sort of patterned after one of my heroes, Hunter S. Thompson. It's sort of a gonzo adventure.
Mine too. Yeah.
People do have given good feedback that it's a page turner. And there's also 85 QR codes. It's the first book that we know of in history that actually has 85 QR codes that link to footage that relates to the subchapters. So, you read about it, like you and I on the Hill. I remember you were there shouting at they were pointing live munitions at us like sniper rifles. And I remember you shouting at them from the bottom of Turtle Hill. So we got you when you read the chapter and then you can use the QR code to watch some of the video, it kind of really pulls you into it.
Well, there you go. You got to buy it because it redirects to my videos. I mean, what could be better?
There you go. So betherevolution.us is where you can find it. You can, and also please go into your local bookstore and ask them to carry it. So they will have the ability to order it. But yeah, go into your bookstore and ask them to actually order copies. Have a book club, whatever,
We have a link in the description too. So I will definitely be reading. I got it today, but I'll be reading it this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, man. And keep up the good fight. We'll keep in touch.
Good to see your face, brother.
You too. Let me read. Got 2 super chats. Denise, $5. Totally agree, Ron. We could do much better than this for the masses. Unfortunately, the oligarchs are happy with this. We need that revolution. Go buy Be the Revolution. Mo, $10. Hey, Ron, it's Mo from Ottawa. What am I, chop liver, Mo? Thank you, everybody. I got to go take care of my child. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Please support us, statuscoup.com/join. And we might have some exciting news for you as early as tomorrow. So stay tuned. Thank you to Ron. Thank you to Jay. Thank you, Colin. See you guys back here tomorrow.